I think first, Frida Toth and the Ian Fleming Foundation can have their words at the front.
Hi everybody, I'm glad to be here and I represent today the Ian Fleming Foundation. Ian Fleming, you might remember, created the character of James Bond, who's got 25 movies, which is twice as many movies as books Ian Fleming created. So the Ian Fleming Foundation has been trying to support young writers. So we came up with a literacy grant and we tried to find a worthy place to send the money. So I'm a librarian for Crandall Public Library, and we actually did, the Ian Fleming Foundation actually did a nationwide search to find, the most sincere pumpkin in the pumpkin patch, or the most worthy writing project. And it turns out that even though we did a nationwide search, SUNY Adirondack was the best fit. And I'll tell you, I know, right? Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
3 miles from Crandall Public Library, so go you guys. First of all, because the Writers Project is amazing. I've been lucky enough to attend a lecture here before, and I just love the way SUNY Adirondack, it nurtures young writers. So the Ian Fleming Foundation had some money to give away to encourage you guys to do even more. So the one thing is, you guys are good. That's why we're supporting you. The Ian Fleming Foundation also, we got a little bit of give us some love too. We want to spread the word that James Bond has an Adirondack connection. This is something you don't know from the movies. There were several James Bond stories that took place locally. The book Diamonds Are Forever has a connection in Saratoga, where James Bond goes for a mud bath. And there's, I can't even name how many have James Bond tootling up Route 9 to go someplace. But The Spy Who Loved Me, the book, not the movie, this is very important. The Spy Who Loved Me, the book, takes place on Route 9 between Lake George and Glens Falls. It really does. So we want everybody to know that. So that's the other reason we wanted to give the money locally. But the primary reason that the Ian Fleming Foundation is supporting the Writers Project is the breadth and scope of your wonderful, wonderful work. So thank you for letting me be here today.
Thank you, Frida. One of the things that I told Frida earlier was that our next contestant on The Price is Right here, William Kennedy, the Pulitzer Prize winner of the Novel Award in 1984. I think he was very happy to know that he would be connected with the Ian Fleming Foundation for our next event on the 30th, right? So he liked being a part of the James Bond mystique and having those connections. So that is a wonderful connection. I did read The Spy Who Loved Me, and I was trying to find the hotel where it all takes place, right? And I don't know if there's an actual particular place or not. Do we know that, Frida?
We know that this is a work of fiction, and Ian Fleming made a lot of stuff up.
Right, and then how often did Ian Fleming actually stay around the area? Could we trace his receipts and tickets to a place quite like the one in The Spy Who Loved Me and nail it down?
He spent time in upstate New York at least every year for 10 years. He had a friend who lived in Cambridge, and he would stay there and go to the races. As far as coming down, tracing his receipts to right here, I've been unsuccessful in tracing receipts to right here. However, he does, he was here because he gave a really good description of South Street. And a really, really biting, nasty description of what was then Storytown. So he was actually here.
Nice. So we've got some research to do, it sounds like, right? Amazing. And as you said, always wonderful writers. Today, we're making further connections with Carol Graser, who has been running the Cafe Lena Poetry Open Mic for a long time. She is the author of the poetry collections Prayer for the Sorrowful Brain, which we'll hear from today, and The Wild Twist of Their Stems from 2007. Her work has been published in many journals, including the Berkeley Poetry Review, Southern Poetry Review, and Midwestern Quarterly. In 2003, Graser initiated a monthly poetry reading series at Saratoga Springs' legendary Cafe Lena, which continues to gather poets and poetry enthusiasts over 20 years later. Her dedication to this series has fostered a strong community of poets and helped make Cafe Lena a central hub for poetry in the area, which I hope that we'll hear more about. Graser often reads her work at rallies, fundraisers, and poetry events in the area and has run poetry workshops for teens and at-risk youth. She lives with her husband in the Adirondacks of upstate New York, where they raise 3 children, countless chickens, and a few cats. Today, from the poems that she gave me, I am figuring that we will hear poems that span the theoretical divide between supposed opposites. Poems that see the light coming through the darkness, poems that see the natural world inside the human, poems that give voice to everyday objects, and poems that perceive the objective resonance of our dearly departed in our everyday lives. Thus, it is a real treat for me to hand the stage over to Carol Graser.
So I've learned a lot already about Ian Fleming, a little bit about myself from listening to that. Oh, all right. We will start. This is a thin ledge on this reading. So we'll start with a few poems from this, and then we'll do a writing exercise if you guys are up for it. And I heard some people are on their lunch break. So,
I'm on my lunch
so you're, have you eaten, or you're just here hungry? You're just
Don't let that slow you down.
okay.
I'm eating.
You're yeah. You were smart.
And there are cookies in the back if you're hungry.
Yeah, cookies and water. So I'm going to start with the title poem, Prayer for the Sorrowful Brain. What world have you made with your tight dangle of parts? Let these neurons be knit again with lanolin-soaked wool, yarn that's been tinged with sumac, goldenrod, onion skin, mint. Let your sparks become diamonds, your folds become marble, your nodules jade. Let your every bit glint into citrine, amethyst, quartz. You are a sculpture of jewels, you conglomerate brain, a brooch among brooches. Let this configuration of fiber and gem be washed in a gush of medicinal oil. Your stitches are pulsing with color, together, together, together. And this next poem is kind of written during a winter that's similar to this winter. And during this winter, I happened to be commuting quite a bit and drove through all the snow that happened. And so this is about someone who did not spend the winter here and came visit us, came back at the end. The winter she left us for temporary work in Kansas. While we hunkered down under early storms and frigid air, while we crunched through days of squeak and bladed wind, while our windows filled with white and streets became trenches that locked cars in treacherous battle, as we braved our way to work and store, she endured the caress of a warmer wind and pined for northeast cold. While we emerged from one collective heave of ice only to be plunged into the next harrowing dump of snow, while we trailed with docility behind lumbering rust-yellow plows, praising the salt they tossed, the trembling feeble paths they made, she brushed her hair in sunlight and dreamt of catching snowflakes on her tongue. While we peered out of caked, bleak eyes, our boldness eroded, our skin weary of bracing, our lank arms stuffed with padded sleeves of defeat, she flew home to our dusted over dirty white and rejoiced at the forecast of the next day's storm. I love to shovel, she exclaimed. I missed the snow, she swooned. We silently killed her. She's okay, because I did warn her. I was like, don't say that in public loudly. It's not safe. Here we go. All right, this next poem is a little different. He turned here. On the 6th floor of the VA Medical Center. Finally disarmed, my father curled in his hospital gown, a large, stiff fetus facing north. His left hand would, almost in a rhythm, brush his face. I pressed the button on his bed to find his weight, to mark time, 164.3, 162, 159. I rubbed his back, but he rocked away. He wanted no distractions. What eddy was swirling him? What boat carried him those last miles? Was he commanded to lay down his arms? Did he volunteer, empty solemnly his pockets and socks, pull the grenades out of his mouth, drop them with relief into the deep black sand? I sat by a window that overlooked a dull stretch of Syracuse and watched his mammalian exit. I cried. There was no one in that wide, hushed room that could order me to stop. This next one is a sort of a, what he was talking about with the objects, a sort of a personification poem that I have a series of in this book. And this one is the ironing board. My ironing board is very folded up and hasn't been used in a while. I don't know about if you guys, probably as college students, there's no ironing board, right? I don't know. The ironing board hasn't left the closet in years. She sneezes at her own dust, clatters on to the damp basement, to the damp mop about the old basement laundry, the joys of never being collapsed. I used to hold things, she says. She goes on about the iron and that tricky heat, the ashtray, the cigarettes with their smooth spirals of smoke, the Diet Pepsi always tinkling her ice. The ironing board was essential and sturdy in her time. Her crossed tea legs held up countless indeterminate moments. Every day she stood in front of that washer and dryer like exact proof of mother. Now she's given up her dream of a new wardrobe of linen shirts. She makes a dash for it one spring cleaning afternoon, lets her sturdy legs take her on a giddy, hobbling flight. No one hears from her for months. There's an uncomfortable hope that she's made it to the edge of town, has found some peace or repurpose at the city dump. She turns up eventually in the park, feeding chunks of bread to indigent ducks. I miss the cigarettes, she says, to a mallard and the Pepsi and the melting ice. She leans back against the sun-warmed bench. The iron was kind of a bastard, she breathes, folding and unfolding her legs. This next poem is, I had my appendix out a few years ago, and I found I missed it a little bit. It was like I kept having pains even though it was gone. So I wrote a poem about it. The appendix believed she was part of the large intestine. She didn't have an origin story. At digestive tract meetings, she dangled silently. Sometimes they forgot to leave her a chair. She had ideas for departmental improvements, but knew she needed more clout before she could speak. At parties, she hung at the edges of conversations, contributed comments that no one bothered to hear. She was in love with the liver, but who wasn't? That dark whale of an organ. You are beautiful and vital, she told herself. They would be lost without you. She wasn't getting any younger. She knew that. She threw herself into the task of harboring digestive bacteria. She harbored impeccably. She harbored with zeal until she harbored the wrong crowd. No one answered her calls to 911. Well, that's just typical, she said, in her first bitter tone. She swelled in self-pity and found comfort in her smarmy new friends. Well, everyone's got some good in them, she rationalized, making room for a few more. When finally someone noticed, when the bright light of attention held her in its glare, she capitulated almost violently. I'll be good, she sobbed. I didn't mean it, she pleaded, but the handcuffs were already clamped to her wrists. The large intestine pulled back from the commotion, the bad taste. I knew she'd be dragged off someday, whispered the colon, as her wails trailed off in the distance and a thick hush fell over them all. we are gonna go on with a poem from my first collection, which is a bit longer. It's called Tribe. It's a lot of, there's so much negativity happening in this country right now. So this is an older poem, but the focus is it's the answer to what's like. I was in California recently. This is terrible segue. I was in California recently. The most LA thing we did was we went to the taco place that was featured in Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime show. That was very good tacos, and we happened to be there. The line wasn't that long, but just the message in his halftime show that was, only love can conquer hate. Let me find the beginning of this. This is called Tribe. I once lived in a tribe and remember the dawn risings, the smooth dirt floor, springing from sleep unalarmed, eager to separate from the now unsoft land of dreams. I remember a star, a radiant configuration. How corny the center was love, but this is how we lived. We painted pictures of the kind of love that looks like a hailstorm, blackening the sky behind a wide, bare oak. We made dolls constructed of bone and fiber to tell about a love that circled, loves of tilt and shine. We stacked stones to talk about a love that reaches into your womb and beats a drum, fills your body with rhythmic hums, stops beating, the story coming fully alive in the silence between. We told stories of love for skin and fur, stories of river love, how the sky might have loved us today with beautiful clouds, ethereal. Love was a grain of sand. It was a mountain. We woke to love, ate breakfast without despair, and prayed for any among us unskilled at finding love. We did not own, we rocked, remembering the rocking lull of our mother's walk, the sacred, undeniable motion of love. Forward, forward, forward. Our mouths we learned and strived to leave with flavors of mint and spectacular autumn. We accumulated love like children, let them crawl on our bodies, pulling our limbs into new shapes of love. With their smallness, we grew large with love. Our eyes meeting over the vast piles of love we sweated and strained to carry. We slowed them clothes of love, and when they felt happy, they rushed into our arms and chanted rhymes of love we never forgot. We set the children like minnows of love to float into rivers that flowed them to oceans that grew them to whales. We were born in love, dropped into pots of love. We simmered until the tender meat of love fell from our bones. We died in love. We became love. We strung disparate loves together web-like, rejoiced when the everyday dew sparkled at delicate joints. We painted the sky with dreams of love, understood wind was a mutable canvas. Sometimes we followed the stars to love, that nail-strewn, hot coal path. We understood the dear parts of ourselves that fell in love with shadows cast by their own looming fear, stood vigil for those lost in the alluring labyrinth. We had small use for shame. We swept up crumbs of love, poured them into a conglomerate wet compost, trusting the turn, the reliable ferment. We planted seeds of love, saved from plants of love, grown from seeds we had saved. We had generations of love webbed eternity-wise, concentrically ringing. We loved up and down as the sun, thin and fat as the moon. We breathed love in and out, staring at the gaping hole puzzles of love until a piece that would snap into place came to hand. We walked hand in hand with love through dry, hot days and frigid desert nights. We walked through frozen tundra with love, swam oceans with love, became lost in vast prairie fields of love, drinking sky and letting wind shape our bones. We climbed trees, loved in a canopy of branches, forgot what the ground was. We traveled the bright, dark world hand in hand with love when we were lucky and brave. I don't remember when the tribe was lost, when the drip of violence cracked and bulged our ceiling until it fell, moldy, in. When the new violent beast swallowed our pure child eggs and spat them out, tainted with the barest stink of cruel. I don't remember under what sky that imbalance was birthed, what shapes the stars had turned to, but we once lived in a tribe centered in love. Our hearts are the beat of that forbidden drum. Do you ever feel lucky? What are we, if not brave? And then we have this one is called The Bird in the Stone. The bird followed the stone into the ground. She loved him. She thrilled him with songs of flight. Her small head rested on his round back. Her wing brushed his heart. Together they would heave and sink. Together listen to the soft lives of toads and worms. He was her cottage. She was his nest. They lived in a generosity of roots. They plunked memories down in neat cemetery rows, epitaph after epitaph. The winter the stone died, the bird shook the dirt from her wings and laid him at the bottom of an icy creek. She hopped on the snowy bank and watched him shine. And this next poem is, so as we talked about, I do the poetry reading open mic at Cafe Lena once a month. It's now on the fourth Tuesday of every month. So it's a featured reader who reads about 20 minutes, and then it's an open mic. And it's free for students. It's a nice event. We get all kinds of people there. So this is, and I would say, sometimes people are a little needy and difficult to work with, but everybody's generally pretty wonderful, and it's an easy group of people to work with, both the open mic people and the people that I booked to be features. But I did have somebody who was especially difficult, so I did write the poem. I haven't written anything about the nice people, but I have a poem about the person who's really difficult. I kept trying to get away from him as we were standing waiting, and he kept following me and talking to me. So I wrote a poem about him. Portrait of the poet unhappy with the size of his crowd. His ears were new in town, but he had been listening to them all his life. His hair had receded into those ears, disappeared entirely from his head. The mustache that lived on his lip was a healthy, much-loved deer, a deliciously pampered only child. He could open his mouth, lift the mustache lid, and tell you everything about his teeth. He came up my stairs dreading niceties, introduced himself as a caricature I wanted to erase. At our wedding reception, his brother exposed himself to the bridesmaid, while an earthquake toppled honeymoons in the tropics. We moved into a moldy home furnished at bargain prices. Mornings, I drank strawberry daiquiris in a soft blue bathrobe and wrote poems about nausea. He died first, and I had his mustache removed in one piece. I wanted to see if it could fly. I wanted the casket closed. I'm sure he's a very nice person. It was just having a bad day. Okay, so this is the last poem. This is doesn't really need an introduction. Pretty self-explanatory. Here with the rugged picnickers. Here with the rugged picnickers and the woman in her yellow t-shirt and her blue-bladed oars and red canoe, her daughter at the prow, her son a few feet away in his neon green child-sized kayak. They stay close to shore, skimming through the choppy water. She doesn't wear a life jacket, but the children do. Rain threatens, wind whips, the sky is stingy with its blue. In the car, the news was all virus and rising numbers. The news was all death tolls and shortages. The wind pulls my hair out behind me. I sit beside a small creek that ripples through muddy green until it hits the sand and rocks near the lake. Rocks the size of field mice, of turtles, of cows resting on the ground. The woman brings her canoe to shore and her children wander between the rocks in bare feet. They jump back and forth across the creek. The girl wades into the lake up to the bottom of her skirt. They keep their life jackets on, and a mother duck drifts by with at least a dozen half-grown chicks. At this picnic table, I've gathered my deceased parents who took me to picnics by the lake with the canoe, and my deceased son, our newborn who never left the hospital. An inchworm with thin black stripes along its green length is doggedly exploring the picnic table's potential, pulling itself up to its full height, swaying back and forth, searching for an upward hold that doesn't exist. My parents are silent and seem happier than I remember. My son, who is the most expansive, tells me the trees are used to picnics with the dead, and an inchworm is an inchworm regardless. And actually, I'm going to read one more poem because it's going to lead into the writing exercise that we're going to do. It's very short. So don't worry, it's pretty short. I just got to find it. This is called The Icicle. Oops. In the depths of winter, the snow finally became an icicle, her lifelong dream to grow by melting, to be clear in her intentions, to stretch thinly from a fat start, wield a formidable spike, to overhang the bareheaded walking in and out of doors and silently threaten. In the deep freeze of winter, she perched and hung heavily. Gusty winds trembled her length. Complacent in her mass, she blinked slowly, blank with certainty. Everything would happen. The bright shine and steady drip, the slow loosening, the sun's hot gaze, her perfect daring leap, the jarring crash. Thank you. So I'm going to have you guys write a personification poem. So pick an object and then just give it a biography and a personality. And what I've got also to make it harder is an envelope full of titles. So you can pick a title to go with your poem and just see what, so I can just pass this around. I don't know the best way to do this. Do you want to grab one, Natalie? Take one and pass it. Sure. I give you like 10 minutes, so just write whatever comes to mind. Don't censor yourself. I think something that's kind of interesting when I work with prompts with people is not so much how they follow the rules, but how they react to the rules. give it like one more minute, so just wind up what you're writing. Is everybody about done? Okay, does anyone want to read what they wrote? Perfect.
I think you can come up, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and anybody from class would be amazing. Go ahead, Len. You can come to the front.
So, the title of my poem is My Mistress's Eyes Are Nothing Like the Sun. Like a dress, I conceal the radiance of my crystal. The construct of my mistress has led to an expansion of discovery, but I am a mere genetic tape woven around her, so distant. For should we ever meet, I know our home would burn. As such, I keep a tidy distance away, but she remains in my center, my heart, my core. She may not light the sky, but she lights up the room, and for that, I am hers, and she is mine.
Thank you, Len.
So my process of creating this was I went into a random word generator, generated 10 random words, and then you just use those words in the poem.
Nice.
So this was about a lampshade.
Perfect.
Nice, thank you. That was so obvious, Wen. Right?
And
I
you
think Frida's got
definitely took
one.
on a different persona as you were reading. That's cool. Does
Yeah.
anyone read?
Yeah, I have one.
All right.
See, I'm really mad because I've been placing some phone calls. My writing prompt is schemes. Press 1. No one's there. Sucker! Press it. Do you dare expect an answer because you're paying weekly? Write to me. I won't write back. Sucker! It's just a lack of interest in you. You'll endure it meekly. You'll keep paying just because the worse your health insurance was can still get worser, and you'll bear it weekly.
The librarian lets loose. Anyone else want to share? Wally?
No.
How about from class?
Let's
Ready
work
or
on
Ian?
it.
I could actually do mine one out, right? So when went kind of Shakespearean,
Yeah.
and yeah, usually often with these kind of in-class exercises, I don't like what I come up with, but this one's kind of goofy, and so I went kind of Coleridgean / Emily Dickinsonian for some reason, right? And I think we'll just see that you guys can see if you guys can like guess the object. Right? Do I give you a hint? Should I give you a hint as to a hint? It's a body part. So I was given the title I Followed a Ribbon, and I turned it into I Followed a Ribbon of Celestial Intention. Sounds kind of like Emily Dickinson or something to me, right? She bore on her shoulders the weights of the whole hulking mass, the brash weight and the vulgar redirections, the unannounced contusions, and the hours of bare waiting. When one day it was announced by another in the vicinity that blank body part body parts the world over were organizing in solidarity for recognition. She was filled with a celestial light she'd never known before. But how to pull away from the whole and begin an ascent to freedom, to let down the ankle, the shin, the knee, and whatever else may lay above. And the rest is to be written. And it seems like, where on the body is it? What bears the weight of the whole hulking organism? It was supposed to be a pinky toe, but you know, it could be a foot, anything like that, right? How often do we think of our feet, right? Nancy actually has a whole series that were written on body parts and things like that. Nancy White, it's great stuff. So, anyhow.
So anybody else wanna read? All right.
Q&A? Do we have time? I don't know what time it is because my phone is up there. So
It is
122.
122. Maybe 8 to 10 minutes of Q&A kind of thing.
Okay.
Is that good? Anybody got questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Freddie.
I was reading the poem Near Nana, and something I was just curious about is after a lot of the sentences, it just kind of goes to it goes like I, goes down a line, let you, goes down a line, go one time. So I was just curious why you just started a new line in the middle of the sentence.
Because that was a prompt from Bernadette Mayer, which was make up a new poetry form. So there's a form called a nonette, which starts at 1 syllable and goes to 9 syllables. So I made a mirror nonette where it's like 1 syllable, 9, and then back down to 1. And so does that answer your question of like why the line breaks are where they are, kind of? It was, yeah, so it kind of fit that form. And that was like a piece of writing that I just pulled over on the side of the road and wrote. And I was like, I can't do anything with this. And then when she gave us that assignment, I found that like fit into that form and felt like more of a poem once I put it into that structure. I wish it looked neater on the page.
First I thought it was like, because a mirror, like it would be 18 lines, and I put like 9 for the other, but then
It sort of looked mirrored, and we read a selection of poems in class, right? So you guys might have other thoughts on those. But that's one that we were thinking about, and we came to know that the nonette is like a selection of 9. We didn't know about the form though, and it's basically your form. Can you say more about forms? Do you often use forms, or do you invent forms, or?
Yeah, I think, like in that case, that turned a little couple lines in my notebook that wouldn't have been anything into a poem that I feel like works. And a lot of times I do use forms sometimes, you know, like a Villanelle or Sestina and stuff, but sometimes I'll also just find a form that exists in the poem, like just breaking it up into couplets or making each line 6 or 7 syllables, or just find, because it just, once you have like the rough draft there and you're just trying to get it like tighter, just even making up your own form that fits that piece. I like to do that a lot. So I've offended Lolly. She's got a.
Just don't agree.
And that was a good prompt though from Bernadette Mayer.
You had an older book that you had published before, and what I want to know is, you ever look over your old books and go, I hate that line?
I try not to do that to myself. So I mean, sometimes I forget, like I forgot about a poem, you know, like I forgot it. I used to read this poem all the time, and now I look at it, I completely forgot about it. Yeah, I don't know. In general, I try not to regret anything. Did you see lines in that book that you feel like I should regret?
No. I don't say I go back and say I hate that line, but I will go back and want to edit something that's older.
You know, like, I mean, it's a choice, like, once it's published. I know a lot.
Right, once it's published, there it is.
You're
But,
like,
you know,
I'm not gonna.
if it was good enough for, Tennessee Williams, I'm gonna read the whole thing.
Yeah, you might, like, as I'm reading it out, I might change a little bit here or there if I'm reading it or doing it again, but I try not to do sort of like You just gotta move forward.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you write poetry.
Sometimes.
So you guys, this is a creative writing class that this?
There's an attached creative writing class, yeah.
Okay.
There's an attached required class for the creative writing major. And we've got a few of those writers right here.
Alright. Anything else? What do you guys generally write?
We have some poets, and actually, you got something there, Freddie?
I generally write like fiction, mystery
Okay.
types.
Fiction and what?
Mysteries.
And mystery or his? Yeah. So I mean, poetry doesn't. I think it's good to infuse a little poetry into your prose. Makes it a little interesting. It's a good thing to write.
A little mystery into your poetry.
A little mystery.
I was going to ask you about the most recent one, Prayer for the Sorrowful Brain, right? Can you tell us a little bit about how that came together?
Right.
Why you picked that poem as the title poem? How you think of coherence in a poetry collection? And why that poetry collection now?
It's a lot.
Right. I'll try to keep all those
Yeah.
itemized in my head.
Those were poems that were written over a long period of time because I don't have that much time, and so there were a lot of poems that I had had the chance to share with people, and that had gotten good reactions over time. So I felt very confident. And a lot of them had been published. So I tried to find pieces that supported other pieces. So I had that through line of, my parents dying, and then dreams about after my parents died, and then a through line of like political poems. So there's like a substance, not just one political poem thrown in there, but like a through line of that, and then some of just having kids and the personification poems are scattered throughout there. And also finding like, words used over and over again, like you'll see. So I think I wrote on index cards the words used in different poems so that it does give the book a whole sense of cohesion for any poetry book, like that you're using the similar images throughout poems. It kind of ties them all together. I used Sarah Fraley's book, Marbles. She has a collection of essays about how to put together a poetry collection. And I had a week, I helped organize a writing retreat at Lake George. So I got to go for free, and I had these 5 days that were gonna be like the only time I had to put a book together. So I got that, I ordered her book and I read it every day, and I just I didn't go to anything else except meals, and I worked on putting the collection together because that was like the only time I was gonna have to do it. So, I don't know, I like, I don't know, when I teach poetry, I like for it to be fun on one level so that people can enjoy poetry and find it accessible. And I've also had the experience of working with poetry for people that it's therapeutic without being therapy. And I really enjoy that. And I like that part about the poetry open mic, because you see people come and go through whole life moments. They'll be on thing. It's important for them to write poetry and read while they're going through this personal experience, and they share it on stage, and then they're kind of through it and they're done. It's kind of a healthy thing about poetry, I think, and any kind of art, really.
Can you tell us a little about Cafe Lena, maybe some of the favorites, or it sounds like we heard about a tough night at Cafe Lena, right?
It's like favorite people
But,
right?
yeah, favorite events, favorite things that happen there.
I don't know, you never know when someone's really gonna hit. Someone will come through and really read really well and be really engaged with the audience. It's always, I guess my favorite part of the night is when people at the end of the night or at the break, people just come up and talk to each other and share what they liked. And I think it's different. One poem that speaks really strongly to one person doesn't reach another person at all. It's very personal. So I like to see people making connections. You know, we've had some big readers. We had Andrea Gibson read a long time ago. Have you guys? She recently died, and the movie was a documentary about her life was just nominated for an Oscar. But she years ago came through and read it. She was more of a spoken word artist. So we have like slam poets come and spoken word come, and then we have like Professor from Skidmore read, and it's all different, and it all reaches different people. And I like what the audience likes, and there's generally somebody out there that speaks to that audience member. So
What's coming up in
tomorrow night, Maggie Greaves, who teaches at Skidmore, she's more of a writes about poetry more than a poet, but she's been writing poetry, and I haven't really heard much of her poetry. So she is going to be the next feature, and then after that in March we have a woman she lives in Delmar, but she has ties to Ukraine, so she's going to be reading her poetry. Yeah, it's always somebody different. Yeah.
Cool, hopefully we can make it. Maybe
Yeah.
we should segue into that part of the event where we can all just
Yeah.
mix and merge and mingle and chit chat with each other. Yay. Thank you.